Now on BBC One Scotland, the BBC News and Reporting Scotland with Fiona Bruce and David Henderson.
The Indian Ocean disaster, the UN says the death toll could be approaching 150,000. Indonesia was hit hardest. It admits it will never know exactly how many died. America increases its aid tenfold. More than $1 billion is pledged worldwide. And 34 Britons are among the dead. There'll be a 3-minute silence across the UK on Wednesday. Good evening. The Indonesian government says so many of its people have been killed by the tsunami disaster, it's given up trying to count the number of dead. Much of the affected region hasn't yet received any help at all. In Sri Lanka, there's been a national day of mourning. Around half of the victims in Thailand were tourists. The UN says the death toll from the disaster could be approaching 150,000. Indonesia bore the brunt of it. Its death toll could exceed 100,000. Andrew Harding now reports from Banda Aceh, much of which has been completely destroyed. You may find some of the images in his report distressing.
Still racing to collect the dead 5 days on. Abdullah Amiruddin volunteered for this grim job. He's an 18-year-old student, a survivor doing what needs to be done. And they don't have to search hard. Body after body is taken away. But no one's counting anymore. Indonesia's final death toll will never be known. We've picked up so many, he says. I've lost count. There's just no end to it. The scale of what's happened here is still hard to take in. We drove southwest out of town, through mile after mile of breathtaking destruction. This is all that remains of a giant army barracks, at least 400 families missing here. Then, abruptly, we could go no further. This is where the road ends and the unknown begins, and another reminder here of the awesome power of that one wave. Now, we are hearing reports that some 80 kilometers down this road here, there are thousands of survivors who are trapped and desperate for help. Today, the news that a handful of those communities have finally been reached. These, the first pictures from Nias Island, just off the coast and lethally close to Sunday's epicenter. Small amounts of aid have now been brought in by helicopter for survivors weak with thirst and exhaustion. So tonight, a somber mood here. Thousands of families camped out in the open. No New Year's celebrations for a country now bracing itself for the long struggle ahead. Andrew Harding, BBC News in Aceh, Indonesia.
President Bush tonight promised a tenfold increase in US aid. More than $1 billion has now been pledged worldwide. The American Secretary of State, Colin Powell, met Kofi Annan at the UN to discuss how to coordinate the global response to the disaster. David Loyne has more.
The American Secretary of State wanted to show willing. He said it was the UN and not the US which is running disaster relief, and America will pay its share.
So this tenfold increase is indicative of American generosity, but it also is indicative of the need. The need is great, and not just for immediate relief, but for long-term reconstruction, rehabilitation, family support, economic support that's going to be needed for these countries to get back up on their feet.
Kofi Annan has demanded an unprecedented response from the world. He too stresses the long-term need.
On the question of fundraising, I think things are looking up. We are doing very well for the moment, but as I said, we are in it for the long term. And I will urge governments not only to contribute for the moment, but be prepared to continue the effort over the longer term.
The first direct supplies of US aid have arrived in the region as bottles of drinking water were offloaded in Sri Lanka. Until today, America's response had aroused suspicions that it was bypassing the UN, working instead with a small so-called core group of friendly nations. It remains the only country with the military muscle to operate at will throughout the region. But Britain has now sent 2 warships, including the frigate HMS Chatham from Dubai, to help out. But the backbone of the aid programme will be the big UN agencies and smaller NGOs. 5 million people are now depending on this lifeline. The already fragile economies surrounding the Indian Ocean are doing what they can to help themselves, but they need every bit of help they can get. David Loyne, BBC News.
In her New Year message, the Queen said her prayers are with the people who've lost family and friends and those awaiting news of the missing. Already, the British public has raised £45 million to help the survivors, including more than £6 million in Scotland. A 3-minute silence will be held across the UK next Wednesday. Here's Jill Higgins.
Much needed clothing for those in Asia who now have nothing. This is a very personal fundraising campaign for Louise Davis. She's just returned from Sri Lanka. She still can't quite believe her family's safe. The home video shows it could have been very different.
I have a chance, along with the help of a great many people, to do something, to be thankful for the fact that I'm here to assist.
130, please. You put it straight in the back set. Keep it on. The whole thing? Great, thank you very much.
This compelling feeling to help is being seen throughout the country. In this coffee shop in Wigan, the proceeds from every cup of coffee today were donated.
The thing that moved it for me was seeing the father carrying his dead child, and seeing all the coverage, how explicit it is, it just really moves you. And you think, you know, what can you do?
Here at the Disasters Emergency Committee, all these small acts of kindness are adding up to a huge amount. So far, £45 million. The call to help is being seen in temples, mosques and churches too. Today, Buddhists in Leicester spent their time putting aid packages together, and Muslims in Hendon offered whatever money they could, as well as their special prayers for those who've lost their lives or their loved ones. Jill Higgins, BBC News.
Other news, and Britain's Olympic medal winners lead this year's New Year's honours list. Athletes Kelly Holmes and Tanni Grey-Thompson are made dames, and there's a knighthood for the rower Matthew Pinsent. Here's Rajesh Michandani.
Smiles all round. Sir Matthew Pinsent, as he is now, posing with his wife for photos at Henley today.
I gave the letter to my mum as a little present in an envelope, and so that was how they found out, which was great on Christmas Day, kind of round the tree. It was brilliant.
No surprises which other names dominate.
Yes, you've won!
Kelly Holmes said she was amazed a girl brought up in a council house could be made a dame. And that title also goes to Britain's greatest Paralympian, Tanni Grey-Thompson. Her success has brought 11 gold medals. Olympics aside, there's an OBE for golfer Colin Montgomerie, whose winning putt retained the Ryder Cup for Europe. From the world of show business, Roger Daltrey of The Who, his wildest days behind him now, is appointed CBE for his work for charity. There's an OBE for sitcom star Geoffrey Palmer and a CBE for much-loved comedy veteran Eric Sykes. Away from the limelight, nearly a third of awards are for community service. 18 years as a hospital porter in Scarborough has brought Fred Adams an MBE.
It's overwhelming. Never thought it'd happen. You know, it's just totally unbelievable, really. I'm lost for words.
The government says it wants to honour frontline public servants. And with so many Olympic stars included too, there's a definite nod towards mass popular appeal. Rajesh Michandani, BBC News.
And that's it from the newsroom for now. Good night.